asked what's traveling a shark, that would be my grandma's funeral!
Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm Cameron Reigle.
And we are still recovering from that magical week known as E3. I believed I was past the sickness portion of it where, I would succumb to whatever crazy international germs would get into my body. But I have not been feeling myself since I've gotten back. I'm afraid I somehow contracted mono. Now, granted, I shouldn't have made out with Bill Trennan, but
Or the other 15,000 people that were there this year.
Yeah, but I was specifically targeting Bill Trennan because I hadn't eaten, and I figured he would have some donuts in his mouth, and he did not. But at least the mace I got in my face, the pepper spray, was enough of a lunch to keep me going. Anyway, yeah. So I'm feeling a little wonky, I don't exactly know what's wrong with me. It's probably blood cancer. But Cameron, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm recovering a bit from last week. Sure, everyone here really wants to know about the amount of phlegm I'm currently dealing with.
What color is the phlegm, Cameron?
Well, we're on DK Vine, so probably neon of some sort.
Or banana yellow. That would be an acceptable color, so long as it's limited edition banana yellow. Then it needs to revert to just gray mucus, which it never actually does.
Well,
I'm
if it's
still
the color of Diddy Kong's bananas, I think I need to start worrying.
I'm still disappointed though about Donkey Kong Land never reverting to a gray cartridge ever. When I first got it, because I got it when it came out, and I really thought that this banana yellow cartridge is like a limited thing, and then it's going to become a gray card, and it never did.
All editions of Donkey Kong Land are special, Hyle.
That is true. That's a good way of looking at it. Anyway, this episode is very special as well because it is our call sack episode, our second this season, our first after E3, and it feels like E3 is a good time to unleash the call sack to clear out all of the errant calls that build up throughout the months. These are calls that weren't on topic to any episodes we were doing that particular week, or they're calls that came in too late, and they may actually relate to a specific episode, but they called in and either when we were recording it or just too late to the cutoff time, which is admittedly very fluid. It depends if I've noticed a call has come in when I'm leveling the audio for the calls, which is very exciting, I realize, to discuss on a podcast. You really want to hear this inside scoop on how I prepare the calls before I actually play them. I try not to listen to them ahead of time, but I do skim them really quick just to make sure it isn't some crazy anti-Semitic creed or anything, And
I can't wait to hear what you and Nick Prohl have to say about them.
So let's get to some due diligence, though, because that is something we kind of slacked on during E3. Admittedly, because there's just no time for fellatio. I was going to say flagellation. I guess it's a little bit of both. So support DK Vine on Patreon.
We're too exhausted to keep it clean this week.
Yeah, support DK Vine on Patreon. DKVine.com/Patreon. We've got some cool things we're starting to roll out. We're going to be introducing a second version of the much lauded, much maligned in some sectors, DK Vine Inner Circle. We're going to be opening a Discord version of that, in addition to the Skype version, because everybody loves the new version of Skype on mobile. Got the squiggly lines. It's so colorful. And so we're not replacing the Skype version of the Inner Circle. We're just supplementing it with a second version. And I'll keep both
the
versions.
Skype version is our third pillar going forward, much like the Game Boy Advance.
No, I'm gonna keep both versions going, and I'll drop in both. We'll see. It's an experiment. If the Discord thing like fizzles, then we'll just keep it on Skype. But we'll just stay with what works. But I know a lot of DK Viners have kind of migrated to their primary source of communication on Discord now. So I want to try to keep with the times as much as possible. We're rolling out T-shirts later this summer, exclusive for patrons as well. And speaking of T-shirts, I am, of course, launching, separate from the Patreon, a DK Vine merchandise store. So there's been a lot of requests for it over the years, especially recently. I think as we started giving out Patreon rewards like the stickers, people are like, hey, I want DK Vine merchandise, but I don't necessarily want to chain myself to $1 a month. So yeah, we'll be opening a merch store very soon, and that will be fun. We've got some funny product ideas that
we do.
I do.
Okay, then. I'll take your word for it.
But that's down the pike anyway. So don't forget to check out DK Vine on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. Cameron? Instagram? Yeah, sure. Tumblr? Yeah, we're on Tumblr.
We're on there, all right. It may not have been updated in over a year, but it's there.
Yeah. Hey, the Facebook and Twitter are updated daily, though. I can say that much. DKVine.com/Facebook, DKVine.com/Twitter. Check us out on YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're getting video content up now, Cameron. It's not just Kongversation podcast reheated and put on YouTube. We actually have damn video content, and it's becoming a regular feature.
We have something special this week. Yeah,
well, just this last week we uploaded both Nick's music video for E3 2017 with you might have heard his song at the end of the last episode of the Kongversation, but we also had footage from our trip to E3 that we put with the song, and check that out. We also have a stream that DK Vine forum Iron Fingers, ACZ, and particularly Special Agent Ape, since it was his project. They did a Twitch stream last autumn about Conker's Pocket Tales HD, which was Agent Ape's recreation of Rare's much beloved, at least on DK Vine, Game Boy/Game Boy Color game Conker's Pocket Tales in Project Spark, using assets from both Conker's Big Reunion, made by Team Dakota, and original assets he crafted in the game maker itself. And of course, Project Spark had its spark extinguished last year, but Agent Ape was kind enough to show off on Twitch last autumn all the progress he made on that, and we have now archived that stream on our YouTube channel. Granted, it was a Twitch stream, and it was recorded from Twitch, so you have blips in quality. The audio drops out. Sometimes the screen freezes. So it's not up to the usual DK Vine standards. But it's still quite an entertaining look into what could have been. So check that out on our YouTube channel. Finally, tell your friends about the Kongversation. Subscribe to us on iTunes and give us a rating. Tell Fabio to get his ass on a Kongversation. We're just dying to interview him. Of course, hashtag bring back the spiders. I also want to give 2 plugs for Rare real quick, because I am a fake paid actor. I am a shill. So check out Sea of Thieves. Come on, Sea of Thieves, their insider program. You know, everybody who plays Sea of Thieves, everybody who gets into this insider program walks away thinking Sea of Thieves is one of the greatest games they've ever played. And it's such a fun experience playing it with DK Viners. And Rare has made the guarantee, they made it at E3, if you're in the insider program, you will get to play Sea of Thieves before it's released. You will get into the program as an active participant of the technical alpha. So you don't have anything to lose to sign up for it. It's seaofthieves.com/insider. And, you know, I still see some skepticism among certain members of the DK Vine community who have written Rare off. They could have written them off, because Nuts and Bolts wasn't what they expected, or because, the Kinect Sports trilogy just wasn't for them. And yeah, it wasn't. Kinect Sports really didn't interest me. I think it's, the best of that genre, but when you think of a Rare game, you think of something a little bit different. And Sea of Thieves, I'm trying to stress to people who aren't on board with it, this is the game we've been waiting for. Yeah, it doesn't start Banjo, it doesn't start Conquer. This is the Rare game we've been waiting for, and it's more than just a Rare game, it is just a damn good time. And I want people to experience it, and if they can experience it for free in the technical alpha, that's, why wouldn't you want to do that? You don't even have to have an Xbox One. If you have Windows 10 and can run the game, there's a technical alpha for that. So check it out.
Just sign up. You got nothing to lose.
Yeah, you got nothing to lose. And I'm trying to recruit people for it, not because I'm shilling for Rare, but because I want DK Viners in this game, because I think this is the game we've dreamt about for so many years. And every DK Viner who gets in and I play with, it's just, it's 3 hours of bliss. And I don't know. I want to keep the good vibes going. I want this to encompass as much of the community as possible, because I feel like there's never been a game like this, and there's never been a game better suited for the DK Vine community mindset than Sea of Thieves. So yeah, seaofthieves.com/insider. You're going to get in.
Never been a better time to join the Insider program.
Finally, Robin Beanland is bicycling for charity in September, and you can donate to his cause. He is bicycling for 9 days across the span of the UK. And he is donating all the proceeds to Special Effect. It's a group who uses video games and technology to improve the lives of the disabled. So, I realize times be tough. I realize we don't have a lot of money to go around, especially with the announcement Nintendo made this week. But let's be honest, you're never going to get your hands on an SNES Classic. So instead, give the Robin Beanland's bicycling trek for charity. And you can find that at justgiving.com, then doing a little search for Robin Beanland. So, yeah, it's a great cause for a great guy. And, well, not for him. He's doing it for people, which makes him a great guy. So, but, yeah, do it. Check it out. All right. So before we get to the calls this week, Cameron, there is some news we need to discuss that wouldn't support a podcast on its own, because we really don't have that much to talk about pertaining to it, but we would be pretty shitty podcast host if we didn't bring this up. So the SNES Classic, or some people will call it the SNES Classic, they finally announced it. It had been rumored for some time, and as apathetic as I was for the NES Classic, I think it's just because NES nostalgia, despite the fact that I had an NES, despite the fact that I was technically more on the tail half of that generation, but I was still kind of part of it, I still empathize and associate myself more with the Super Nintendo generation onward. And the NES nostalgia, I feel like, overshadows all of other Nintendo's legacy, besides the NES. So when the NES Classic was announced, I kind of just rolled my eyes and was just like, all right, whatever. I also thought it was kind of ludicrous that it was Nintendo's big holiday item for that year.
I kind of had like a similar feeling when they announced it. Part of that is the NES was a little bit before my time. Granted, I still did play plenty of NES games that I love to this day, that some of which weren't on the collection, so that's a thing. But I think also my kind of apathy was enforced by like purposefully enforced by my own psyche because I knew I would never be able to buy one, and you kind of rationalize the appeal of something when you know you're never going to get your hands on it.
Well, initially we didn't know that. Initially we didn't know Nintendo was only going to make 4. and 4 with a sharpened stick so people could fight to the death over them. So that came later, but I also knew that the hypocritical part of my brain that scoffed at the NES Classic, despite, liking a lot of NES games, it just wasn't for me. But I knew when a Super Nintendo version would be announced, and if it included Donkey Kong Country, I would have to own one. And that's just the completionist weirdo part of my brain. And lo and behold, here we are, and Donkey Kong Country is one of the games on it. Not Donkey Kong Country 2 or Donkey Kong Country 3, but Donkey Kong Country, the original. Yeah. A lot of people in the DK Vine community are saying, well, this is a disgrace. DKC 2 and DKC 3 should be in it. I'll agree at least DKC 2 should be in it. I love DKC 3, but let's be honest. As far as importance goes, it's not held in the same esteem as the first 2 DKC games. And the majority, not everybody, because there are people who say DKC 3 is the best, there are people who say DKC 1 is the best, but I would say the majority of people have the consensus that DKC 2 is the best of the trilogy, and it's one of the finest platformers of all time. And so to not have it on here is very disappointing. I would be more disappointed, however, if Donkey Kong Country wasn't touted on the box as one of the main draws of the SNES Classic. You've got that, you've got Super Mario World, you've got F-Zero, you've got Super Mario Kart, and you've got Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. Those are the big games. And of course Star Fox 2.
Yeah, that's
which I think is
quite
the big draw.
Yeah, big draw over not just having a decent collection of games from the SNES, but yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere, and it's really nice to see. The exclusion of DKC 2 and 3, while I'm a little bit disappointed, just because I love those games and it would have been nice to have them on a miniature version of the system I identify them with. I feel like I do understand the lineup that they had. I would say if you had to keep this to, 20 games plus Star Fox 2? Mm-hmm. I feel like I'd be hard-pressed to take another 2 games off of that list to slot DKC 2 and 3 in, because there are a lot of titles on there that I know people hold near and dear to them. And I do see, while I do think I like DKC 2 more than the original, I understand the original's place as historically significant to the history of the Super Nintendo. It's the cultural touchstone of the trilogy, regardless of people's opinions on the actual game. And I think it definitely was a must that it be on here, so I do appreciate that it is here.
Yeah, it's the second best-selling SNES game of all time, only after, or maybe it's the third. It's up there. Super Mario World and Super Mario All-Stars, I think, have the top slots by virtue of being out first. And I can hear Cameron typing, so he must be looking this up. Because this just came up the other week on this show. I specifically
let's see here. Yeah, number 1, and I don't know if these. This is the Wikipedia article. It marks which games were pack-ins. Top selling was Super Mario World. Second was Super Mario All-Stars.
Yeah.
Third, Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah. So
fourth, here. This is interesting. Fourth, Super Mario Kart. Fifth, Street Fighter 2. Sixth, Donkey Kong Country 2.
Yeah. So the fact that
outselling Link to the Past and Yoshi's Island.
Yeah. So I mean, Donkey Kong Country 2 should be in there. but I'm not going to play the bitter fanboy card because Super Mario All-Stars also isn't in there, and it would have been a little cheap, I think, to put that in there. I mean, it was the second best-selling SNES game, but it also is just rooted in NES nostalgia. So
it would be kind of, well, not quite since the games are remakes, but like having a best of the GameCube and putting Sonic Mega Collection on it.
I will pretend to understand that I know that
a collection of Sega Genesis games on a GameCube.
Oh, yeah, okay, gotcha. I do associate Sonic the Hedgehog a lot with the GameCube, just by virtue of that's when Sega, their console empire collapsed, and they just started making games. Sonic games just started appearing for GameCube. So I don't know like the titles and which was a new game and which was a port or a remake, but yeah.
Something else we should probably mention. This is going to... The SNES Classic is going to vary in model depending on your region.
Right.
Just as the original did.
Yes. And so Americans have the ugly gray and purple model, while... Which
I'm just now realizing looks like the Twitch interface I'm looking at right now.
I have a lot of nostalgia for the American Super Nintendo because that's what I grew up with. That's what I played these games on. But I can attest that, it's not the best color scheme. I don't know what they were thinking.
I don't dislike it, but I don't understand why they went with it either.
The color scheme reminds me of those hideous, like, pink and white candies that are like Mike and Ike's, but they suck. You know what I'm referring? I don't remember their names, but it's something like
Ian and Roy's.
What?
Ian and Roy's. I was trying to make a funny. Good. Q-Burn in the Twitch chat suggesting Good and Plenty's.
Good and Plenty. I fucking hate Good and Plenty. It's like. Oh, these look fun. Oh my god, what did I put in my mouth? And that's what the American Super Nintendo color scheme looks like. But I do want the mini SNES. I'm not going to try to import. It's going to be hard enough to get one anyway, so I'm not going to try to make things even more difficult and try to import one of the European or Australian models. I'm just going to go with the old trusty standby.
Yeah, if I end up pursuing this thing, I would love if by some miracle I were able to get my hands on the European version. I think my sense of childhood nostalgia is overruled by my fondness for brightly colored face buttons, which I really, really wish would make a big comeback.
Yeah. But, I don't think we'll have to worry about this because we're never going to get our hands. I went into GameStop this week and I was like, what's the situation about reserving one of these things? And they said, it's nebulously going to be sometime next week, first come, first serve, and we're only going to be able to reserve around 12. And it's like,
then they're going to burn the blueprint, shoot the guy who made it. And...
Yeah. We're going to go back in time, and we're going to suffocate Miyamoto in his crib just to make sure nobody gets to enjoy this. I really don't understand what Nintendo's rationale is. I mean, these are a license to print money. If it's like they're afraid of having any excess inventory sitting in warehouses, and it's just like, come on, you can make a little bit more. The demand is clearly there. The precedent has been set. Produce these. God damn Nintendo. Star Fox 2 is really surprising, and granted, it's not necessarily Donkey Kong Universe, but it's related to the DKU by virtue of the Dinosaur Planet trilogy. And, in my head, I've considered it non-canon for so long that, and I mean, what is Star Fox canon anymore, really? But...
Yeah, this is a really weird scenario of sort of a game becoming canon that's also in a canon that's no longer active.
I think you can rationalize Star Fox canon. Like, even before Star Fox Zero, in my head, I had Star Fox Super Nintendo in canon with Star Fox 64. It's just an event that happens immediately before Star Fox 64. It's Andross's first strike, or it's just the same events being shown in different aspects. But yeah, Star Fox 2, it introduced Star Wolf, or was going to introduce Star Wolf, but it's interesting that this game, and granted, it's been available through ROM leaks and whatnot, but to have it officially available, officially endorsed now, that's kind of mind blowing, and I feel really happy for the Star Fox fans. This is a treat. It would be the equivalency is wrong, but it would be similar to us finally getting Donkey Kong Racing in like the GameCube Mini, the GameCube Classic. I realized Donkey Kong Racing was never anywhere close to completion or anywhere close to actually being a workable game, but
yeah, and it's interesting to see like the characters from Star Fox 2 that like I'd completely forgotten about, like that never appeared in anything else. I think the pronunciation is Mew and Faye, the two additions to the Star Fox team that they made in that game.
Yes, I guess they just died like off camera before Star Fox 64, or I don't know. Like I'll have to now fan.
What is it with these Star Fox continuities ditching the female characters when they reboot?
I know it's an unfortunate. Whoever the Superboy Prime is of that universe really has it out for strong female protagonist.
Yeah, I'd honestly like to see like them and Crystal, like, and like all these sort of characters that have fallen by the wayside come back in a new game, regardless of whatever they do with the continuity. Just you have these ideas on the table. You might as well use them. You
own these characters. Use the IPs. It's the same thing I don't understand about leaving so many Donkey Kong characters on the shelf when you make a Donkey Kong Country game.
Or like, I'll bring up the example, like, you make a new Ninja Turtles, you can bring in Bebop and Rocksteady. It doesn't have, and Krang. It doesn't have to be something only the 80s cartoon did.
Right, exactly.
Which the new cartoon has done.
Although, I do like Toka and Razar. They're all right.
Oh, they were in the new show, too. Sort of.
That's awesome. I love, granted, I haven't seen a single second of the new Ninja Turtles cartoon, but I love omni continuities like that. I like when Batman properties aren't afraid to like bring in characters from the Adam West show or the myriad of continuities. I mean, I noticed like the Lego Batman movie did that. They brought in characters from the Adam West show, obscure characters from the comic book, from the various animated series. So, I like things that embrace all aspects of continuity and kind of makes it part of the same valid universe. Anyway. SNES Classic. I'm going to try to reserve one next week, but I have a feeling my chances are very, very slim. So, what else? Oh, yeah, there's a new Monopoly game that was just announced. Did you hear about this? Did you hear about this? This was a new Nintendo Monopoly called Monopoly Gamer. And honestly, I don't give a shit about this.
What strikes me is that's a really odd way to brand a version of a Monopoly that's explicitly, like, not only Nintendo themed, but Mario themed. Like, you went with Monopoly Gamer?
Yeah, and there's already a Nintendo Monopoly. I believe they've done 2 versions of it. The first one had a DK barrel pewter token. The second version eliminated that, although the Donkey Kong spaces are still on the board. But this it's like it has new rules specifically designed to keep the short attention spans of gamers, which
I mean, I'm in favor of that because honestly, vanilla Monopoly is kind of a slog.
Yeah, it's terrible. I fucking hate Monopoly. And let's be honest, these character, I guess, tokens that come with the game. They're not pewter Monopoly. That would have been cool to see these characters rendered in like the pewter Monopoly style. But these are
not necessarily, because then like every single one of them would be in the next Mario Kart.
Well, nonetheless, these are just cheap-looking plastic figurines, and they don't look as good as the Jack specific ones. They don't even look as good as the ones before Jack specific. These look like they're like rejects from the 25-cent grocery store machines. The plastic looks so cheap it looks like it's melting in these photographs.
Are these a lot smaller than those? Or...
I don't really know the scale.
I mean, all I really know is that Diddy Kong is one of them, so I feel the need to shut up about anything related to quality control.
Diddy Kong is one of them. He doesn't come with the game, though. He comes in the blind box packs you can purchase this fall to supplement the game. So they're really trying to like make Monopoly appealing to the youths by appealing to gamers and by appealing to the collector mentality. And the only thing interesting about the Diddy Kong, it's just the most bland Diddy Kong pose, by the way. It's just him on all fours. And the only interesting thing I would say about the Diddy Kong figurine was pointed out by DK Vine staffer David, and that is he doesn't have the Nintendo logo on his hat, nor does he have the stars on his shirt. If it wasn't for him having 5 fingers and 5 toes, he would effectively be the Donkey Kong Country 1 model. For
maybe because this is Monopoly, he'd have to like pay a licensing fee to Nintendo every space.
But these figures look hideous, right? I mean, they in my mind, they look hideous. They just look cheap, and the quality of both Amiibo and Jack Specific isn't there. And honestly,
I mean, you wouldn't buy these as standalone toys, but I mean, that's kind of the point.
Yeah, but the fact that they are selling them, or at least they're going to be selling standalone ones to add to the game, I just don't care about this. And thankfully, there are no video game components to it like Mario Party E, so it's never going to be like, oh, we have to consider Monopoly Gamer canon. It's not a video game, so it's just merchandise. But people expected me to talk about it. I was getting Twitter messages that said, warm up the podcast, Mikes, and then sending me a link to this. I'm just like, I'm not going to do an episode about Monopoly Gamer, guys. I realize we do episodes about the most mundane garbage here in the Kongversation, but I draw the line at Hasbro board games. If this was Donkey Kong Monopoly, that would be something. Sure, we would talk about that, but
what about the Donkey Kong Pog game from the 90s?
We should do an episode about. I got to track it down, and it's got to have all the parts. I don't think we could get an episode out of Donkey Kong Yahtzee, but Donkey Kong Pog. Now there's an episode. There's an episode waiting to happen. It's Donkey Kong Country Pog too. So, I've got to track that down. I really do. I can't believe I don't own. I can't believe I didn't buy it back in the day because I was a 90s kid and I did collect Pogs, and somehow I never got Donkey Kong Country Pog. What the fuck? All right. Well, let's take some calls. That's enough about our board game night is over, Cameron. Let's actually hear what the callers have had to say. Now, keep in mind, these go back all the way to March. So we're going to be going through the ages here. Man, just think how different the world was back in March 2017. Wow. It's like time travel. All right, here we go. First call.
So, are you getting both versions of CFDs, a crazy kind?
Thank you for the call. Did he just call me a crazy cunt?
I think that kind of run together. I think the first part was asking, though, are you getting both versions of Sea of Thieves?
The Xbox One and Windows 10, I'm assuming. I will try it on both. Yeah, absolutely.
I would assume if this works like the way Killer Instinct did, that you would own both versions of the game by purchasing one or the other. So
I don't want to like step in it by saying either way because I'm not sure. But I think that's going to be the case. And if so, you can't really beat Sea of Thieves, so I can't beat it on both, but I will play it on both.
Killer Instinct, also the save data carries over. I'm not sure if that's going to be the same case in Sea of Thieves either.
I imagine it will, since it'd be connected to your Xbox gamer tag. I assume so, but
full disclosure, Killer Instinct is the only game that works on this sort of shared console PC experience. So I'm not sure how much of it will carry over to other games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The way I think they're trying to build Sea of Thieves, they're definitely building it with the crossplay in mind. So, yeah, I think it's all going to be the same game world. I mean, I don't really know how like servers are going to work when the final game is released or any of that, but yeah, I will definitely play it on both, especially now that I have a computer that will be able to actually play. I have a powerful enough computer that will be able to handle Sea of Thieves, so that's exciting.
Yeah, and I believe on one of the videos they've stated like in some of the sessions they've like snuck in themselves playing on PCs and along with the Xbox players without anyone noticing.
Yeah.
So I assume crossplay is in the cards. Don't know if it'll carry through or not, but it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really going to help because, one of the biggest hurdles, I think, trying to get DK Viners on board with the modern era of Rare, 2015 onward, has been that so many of them just will not buy an Xbox or don't have the money to buy an Xbox. If they have to choose between a Nintendo console and one of the other ones, they'll buy the Nintendo console, or maybe they're PlayStation gamers, and that's, and they never made that jump with Rare or whatever. But
it took me until Nuts and Bolts to make that jump, honestly, and that was a financially motivated jump.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I bought an Xbox. It was in 2003, I think.
I will forever regret that I didn't contribute to the initial sales of Grabbed by the Ghoulies.
No, I either got it late 2002 or I got it in 2003. And, yeah, I mean, I got it for Rare, and I got an Xbox 360 on launch for Rare, which was a mistake considering I went through two of those things. They both red ringed on me. And I finally got the newer model near the end of its life. But and I got an Xbox One when Project Spark was announced, or when Big Reunion was getting ready for release. That was the motivating factor for me.
Yeah, I recall this moment we had among the DK Vine staff, I believe. I don't think the Inner Circle was a thing at the time, but all of us were together watching the Rare Replay reveal, and I think like one by one, every one of us who didn't have an Xbox One suddenly like went through the gradual process of trying to get one. I think Matt ordered one within maybe a couple hours of the conference being over.
Yeah, when there was that time then in the summer where like Rare Replay was the most like reserved game or something on the Xbox. So yeah, making people make that leap, it's a big hurdle. The buyout, it gets overblown, the negative effects it had, but the worst thing it did was it split the fan base in two. And what Sea of Thieves is offering is that anybody who has Windows 10, which will be most people who have a PC, will be able to play Sea of Thieves on there. So you can bypass having to get an Xbox and you can still participate, which quite frankly is great. And the cross-play aspects of that means that everybody will get to participate. And I'll definitely want to try it out on both. I mean, it's going to be fundamentally the same game, but as you said, I am a crazy C word, and that is applicable for Sea of Thieves. So, yeah. Thank you for the call. I think that was ILDC. Next call.
Hi, this is Karate Joe. I'm calling because I'm locked out of my house and I'm a little bored. So I thought I'd just give a call. So let's see what to talk about. I guess the Switch is out. We haven't had an episode about the Switch yet. Maybe there will be one. This could be a good prediction on my part. You haven't announced one. So It'll be about the Switch, this call. I think it's really good. I know people are having problems with it. I haven't run into any problems myself. I think it's cool. It loads really fast. That's the most impressive part about it, I think. And the portability, of course. So thin. But I guess, iPad is pretty, not substantially more impressive than, other tablets. But I think it's really cool. It's really fun. I like Zelda. Zelda's fun. It's hot out here. Oh, man. Ooh, it's really hot out here. California, it's like mid-March. It's like 81 degrees. I hate it. Okay. Zelda, I really like. It's really great. What about the Switch? Alright, controls, I was kind of worried. Looked like the corners would dig into my palms, but I haven't done that yet. I actually experienced that a bit more with the Wii U gamepad. Also, I think the shoulder button placement, the big improvement over the Wii U. I don't have cramping issues like I did with the Wii U after long playing sessions. I like the Wii U gamepad for the most part, except I get cramps after like 2 or 3 hours. So, those long tropical freeze sessions put a strain on my hand. Hopefully they come out with a good Donkey Kong game for Switch. I think I'll like it no matter what it is, honestly. I'm not very picky when it comes to platformers. I have a very high tolerance to bad platformers. I'm sure I would love DK64 if I got a chance to play it. Seems like something I would enjoy, just mindlessly, for a long time. Did I ask a question? Alright. For a Donkey Kong game for the Switch, how would you feel if, there was, I'm coming up on the 3-minute mark. Gotta think of something. Gotta think fast. Real fast. Ooh, like Sonic. There's Sonic games coming out for the Switch. I like them. So, I'm gonna buy those. Donkey Kong games. Ooh, I got 20 seconds. 15. What if they made a Donkey Kong game where there, was a, racing game. Diddy Kong.
Oh my God, Hyle. That was back in March. How long has he been locked out of his house and nobody's helped him?
I know. Please do not confuse the DK Vine Hotline with emergency services.
Karate Joe, let us know you're all right.
So yeah, we did do a Switch episode. I did it with Josh from Off of the Geek Critique, and I played a Switch for the first time, as did you, Cameron, at E3 playing Super Mario Odyssey. Which kind of weird. The first time we played the Switch was for a game that's not even out yet.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out we played with strictly the Joy-Cons, so we didn't actually get the experience of holding the full Switch console in our hands either.
No, which I wanted to, because I've been noticing as of late that I really just don't like the Wii U gamepad. I was fine with it at first, but I think I have less tolerance now for how bulky it is. Not bulky as in the beloved Perfect Strangers character, but bulky as in the size Mark Lynn Baker ballooned to post Perfect Strangers. This is a weird slam on Mark Lynn Baker. So anyway, yeah, the Switch looks more comfortable, but I'm still a little shy about the size. I don't know. I like compact.
We did see a few people playing their own Switches in the line for Mario Odyssey, and it does look like it's a much more manageable size than the Wii U gamepad. Though, looking at it, I'm honestly terrified that I'm going to break it or scratch it or drop it like a cell phone. Sort of. It looks like it might be a liability, and I'm getting nervous.
Yeah, the problem I have with the Switch, and it was the first time I've seen people play the Switch in a while. I mean, of course, E3, it's, a environment where you're going to see that, but the problem I have with it, you're taking an expensive console on the go with you and taking it to places like the bus. I don't ride the bus, but if you ride the bus, you might play the Switch on the bus. And I would be nervous as hell. It's one thing to take a 3DS or something with you because in your head it's designed for that, and the price point is a little bit more reasonable, and it's got like protective clamshell around it and stuff like that. But
I am going to be sad to see the clamshell design go if they ever cease production on the DS line.
I mean, I imagine at 3DS, it's like the GBA after the DS came out. It's this, I guess in this case, the second pillar that isn't really being supported anymore, minus like one or two errant releases.
I just really loved the clamshell over something like the original GBA and Game Boy and the PlayStation Portable line because it's just an extra layer to get banged around instead of your game screen.
Oh, yeah. Once they came out with the GBA SP, man, that just completely... It turned the Game Boy from a toy into a sophisticated, sexy machine. Like, it was like that's when the Game Boy became a game man.
It was so great, I, usually forget the fact that it didn't have a headphone jack. It was actually good enough for that not to be a big problem. Yeah,
I think I ended up buying like 2 SPs. I don't know why, but it was just, I mean, I loved it, and the backlight too, of course, was a major leap forward, which is something you would think Nintendo would have been on board with.
Oh yeah, I can't. For how long I dealt with non-backlit screens on the Game Boy Color and the Game Boy Advance, I cannot go back now.
No.
I look at that and I wonder how I ever managed.
Yeah, I mean, when the Game Boy Color came out, I thought there should be a backlight to this. And it took them... I mean, it wasn't a decade, but it felt close to a decade. I mean, it was...
Do you recall, being in a car playing it and just, praying you'd end up, next to a street lamp?
I mean, I just assumed I couldn't play it at night. I mean, that's just,
I remember all kinds of weird sort of gymnastics I would do to get the system in a decent light.
Yeah, it was just I knew I couldn't play Game Boy at night, and I never bought that ridiculous book light enhancement for it.
I had one of those ones that was a weird a wire encased in rubber coil that you hung over it.
Oh, okay.
And I know it was especially bad on the original Game Boy Advance because if you played vanilla Game Boy Color games on it, the palette was actually darker, and it would be even worse. I remember playing some of the cave areas in Gold and Silver, and it was really, really hard to see.
It's kind of like the N64 games on the Virtual Console, where they're just completely darkened and washed out. And it's fun getting screenshots from those because for our site, because I then have to lighten them up in Photoshop every time, and I'm just like,
oh, I like that I have to set my Wii U to 480p mode in order to play Donkey Kong 64 in widescreen.
Donkey Kong 64 was just too easy and sensible to play before, Cameron. They're just trying to give you a little bit of extra challenge. All right. Thank you for the call, Karate Joe. Again, we are not emergency services. If you lock yourself out of the house, we cannot help you because we will be taking your call months after the fact.
We were even in LA, Hyle. We could have helped him when we were out there.
3 months later, but yeah, I mean, assuming the birds and raccoons haven't gotten to him, yeah, sure. All right, next call.
Hey, it's Karate Joe. I'd just like to update. I am in the house. So I got in the house, so you don't have to worry about me. I guess I have to ask a real question. Diddy Kong Racing, of course, you would feel good. I know the answer. But I have to call you out on something. Okay, so in the Zelda DLC episode, you said it would be strange for you to talk about Snake Pass on the Donkey Kong podcast. In the Zelda DLC episode, so I'm just going to call you out on that fact. In the Zelda DLC episodes, that you weren't going to talk about Snake Pass, of course. Not DKU, and I'm not going to refute you on that. But gotta keep in mind, David Wise. So that's the whole call. That's the whole 2 calls. I made this one slightly after the first one, because now I'm in the house. So, yeah, that's all. I guess I don't really have a question for you. Just comment on this call. Please. Please.
Thank you for letting us know you got in safely, Karate Joe.
I'm with him on this one. We had a Zelda DLC episode.
To be fair, okay, it wasn't necessarily about Zelda DLC. It was about DLC as a whole and its effects on the industry and how it could affect Donkey Kong Universe going forward. It was just spurred by the Zelda DLC announcement. So that's my defense for that. But I mean, Snake Pass, we might talk about Snake Pass at some point. I have not played Snake Pass yet because I haven't had time.
Yeah, that's really it. I think Snake Pass will enter the conversation on the Kongversation at some point once some of us get the opportunity to devote any significant amount of time to it. I've been hearing plenty. I've played a little bit of it myself. Things came up to sort of distract me from completing it. Been hearing a lot of good things. David Wise again. Hearing a lot of what I've heard of the soundtrack has been great. I've been hearing even greater things about what I might hear later. And I mean, this is from Sumo Digital, the same studio that brought us the excellent Sonic All-Stars racing games. Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. God, did I get that title right? Was probably my favorite racing game of the last decade. Believe produced by Joe Neate now with Rare on Sea of Thieves.
Yes.
Excellent game. So, yeah, I definitely trust that Snake Pass is great and relevant to our world. I just don't think any of us have been able to devote the time to do it justice. Same as has been true for some actual DKU titles, frankly.
Yeah, the problem with Snake Pass is it came out right before Yooka-Laylee, if memory serves me correctly. And then we had to talk about Yooka-Laylee, and then we're also getting ready for E3, and then, it's E3. It's just late spring into early summer is just the most tumultuous time for DK Vine. So, yeah, sorry, Snake Pass. We'll give you a pass soon, I'm sure. But anyway, yeah, maybe that'll be an honorable mentions episode at some point in the future. But glad you're okay, Karate Joe. I like to imagine he got in his house using karate. All right, let's hear what somebody else has to say. Unless it's just Karate Joe giving us another update that he's now locked outside of his house again. So we'll find out, won't we?
Hi, Hyle. This is Rob Butler, and I had a question for you. So you talked about the DK rappers on the Yooka-Laylee episode. All the other side characters in Donkey Kong 64 got names by you guys. I was wondering if you might do the same for the DK rappers, and I wanted to suggest that whoever the main one is who wrote the rap should be Hunkty Crunkty, because that was in this old Mega 64 video where they interviewed the supposed writer of the DK rap, and I think it's a good fitting name, but if you disagree, that's okay. It's your site and all. Anyway, thanks as always. Bye.
Thanks, Rob. I don't know why we haven't given fanon names to the DK rappers yet, and I think it's just because the concept of them actually being characters only really dawned on us relatively recently.
Yeah, even to this day, I still think of them as just the people on the team who were doing the funny voices.
Yeah, Chris Sutherland and George Andreas, and then it's Kev Bayless in the Yooka-Laylee rap in lieu of George Andreas. But yeah, I don't even know where we would begin coming up with fan names. It's something we probably have to do, and we'll take your suggestion to heart. But I don't really know. Like, honestly, like Chad and I came up with a lot of fan names back when DK Vine was young and new and covered in fetal goo. But since 2010,
Expansion Pak Shakur.
Oh, that's good. That's we might have to go with that.
I think it's not good, and that's what makes it fit.
Of course, that would have to be George Andres' one, which that explains his absence for the ukulele rap. They couldn't get the hologram working in time. Yeah, but since 2010, it's been Matt, really, who's been doing a lot of the fan names for DK Vine. Because I think I've lost my edge when it comes to just blindly assuming I have any authority. And Matt came in with Donkey Kong Country Returns, and he named so many of the characters who didn't have names, including all of the new animal friends who you don't get to ride on, but they are established as pseudo-animal buddies. Like, the only name I pushed for was, I pushed for Canopy because that was... DK Vine 4 member Michael Julius Peterson, M-Dog, that was his like childhood fantasy of having a giraffe animal buddy named Canopy. So
I think
that solid.
I think Jeff Onan named a few of them. Well, I mean, I know he at least named AI, the robot from one of the factory levels. Yeah,
that was did he name that? I thought I pushed for AI.
Was it?
Jeff did name some of them. I know.
I will defer to your judgment because, as established, my memory is terrible.
I know I pushed for the elephant.
I need an expansion pack of my own.
I know I pushed for the elephant to be named Elliot in reference to my first DKU buddy in life, and but I know Matt named Cyril. That was the squirrel's name, which is just a Matt name, just giving them the most like blandly absurd name he can think of. I think maybe Jeff pushed for the whale's name. I don't really remember, but
Waylon.
Anyway, yeah.
I remembered one thing at least.
What's that?
The whale's name.
Oh, okay. So, anyway, yeah.
Bad memory, bad hearing. We're just falling apart on the conversation.
We are. It's the post E3 decimation. Yeah, so maybe we'll have to do a staff huddle and try to come up with the names for the DK rappers. Although Expansion Pak Shakur is pretty damn solid, and I don't know if that's going to be beat. So thanks for the call, Rob.
Oh, hi, Hyle. It's Rob Butler again. I was also wondering, because I keep hearing in like every episode recently, there's like some weird creepy voices playing backwards sometimes. At first I thought it was just some joke or callback I wasn't understanding, but now I'm a little concerned. I know you edit those, so maybe you know what's going on. You can elucidate. Anyway, thanks again. Bye.
I don't know what you're talking about, Rob. I really don't. I think you're hearing things. I think the stress is starting to get to you, and I think the mind can play tricks on you when you're tired. I really just don't. People have been saying this to me. They've been saying, Hyle, what's with all the weird backwards messages on the conversation? And to that I say, what?
I listen to your Twitch streams all the time, and I never hear any of this.
Exactly. We're doing this live, and there's nothing there. So I would suggest a good lie down, Rob. I know being a butler is busy, hard, strenuous work. You're doing it like 18 hours a day, but seriously, maybe take some you time and really just kind of unwind, because I think you're coming into these episodes too tense. Just some advice from one friend to another. But thank you for the call. All right, let's hear what the next person has to say.
Hello, Hyle, and insert other host name here. It is yours truly, Banjo-Kazooie 2000 here, with some thoughts about World 2, Glitter Glaze Glacier. Glacier? Oh well, name's really hard to pronounce. Anyways, I'm here with my little thoughts, as I stated before, and first I'm going to start off with what is, without a doubt, the best thing about the world, the music. Oh, the music, I don't know how David Wise does it, but whenever he makes a track for anything, you're immediately immersed into the world, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And, I mean, the Ice Palace music, oh god, that actually had me just a few little tears coming out of my eyeballs. I usually don't cry over things in video games, but that got me pretty teary-eyed. It actually was kind of emotional the way it sounded. Another thing I like is the boss music, still sticking with the whole music motif. I don't know what it is about Breeze Block's theme that is so good, but it just is. I can't really explain it. Something I don't like about Glitter Glaze Glacier is the awkward controls of the snowplow. Probably a lot of people are going to say that. But navigating up those really tight corners and stuff, incredibly difficult. But before my call gets cut off, on one final note, I do love the different snowmen in this world. And one of the snowmen has a purple and green scarf, and when you get her a witch's hat, she gives you one rhyme. And, of course, our buddy Flitch has affectionately called this snowman Grunchilda. And, yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Thank you so much for taking my call. Sorry if it's long. This has been Banjo-Kazooie 2000, signing off, up, over, under, and out.
Thank you for the call. I believe this call came in when we were actually beginning the recording for the Yooka-Laylee World 2 episode. So it didn't make it onto the episode it was intended for, but the call sack never dies. So we resurrected here. I am glad you had these same experiences with the snowplow that I did, and that most people did.
Mr. Plow is a loser, and I think he is a boozer.
I don't think the snow plow controls are being updated with the Spit and Polish update, which is now available for PC. But we're still waiting on the console update. But my God, that's just one of the most frustrating parts of the game for me.
I think the key difference between it and the van from Banjo-Tooie, aside from the snowplow's challenges being more precision platform oriented, is that it steers more like an actual vehicle than a playable character. Like, it has a turning radius. It's more
right. It really shouldn't have that much heft to it when you're just transforming from the light and airy, lizard and bat.
Which feels weird to say about something as massive and hefty as a snowplow.
Yeah. I mean, I don't hate Glitter Glaze Glacier. It is probably my least favorite world of the game, but there is plenty to enjoy, including the music, as you said. And I did like the snowman characters. I hated the mission involved with getting their fucking hats. But at the very least...
Because it involved the snowplow.
Because it involved the snowplow. It was miserable. And eventually, I mean, it was easy once you figure it out. It's only going to be places that the snowplow can reach. So, I don't have to go that far. But they were enjoyable characters. And I liked that most of them... There was one that was a cowboy, which was weird. But most of them were like your standard rare archetypes, like witch and pirate, so yeah. I don't know. Sorry we didn't take your call back during the episode proper, but I'm glad we could at least address your thoughts here.
Hey, Hyle, and whatever guest happens to be on this week. This is Bean Dude again. That's right, you got my name completely right. And I couldn't be more proud of you. Anyways, I could not be any more excited for E3 this year, and you know why? Actually, I don't even know if they're going to announce it at E3, but if they do, the release date for Yooka-Laylee on Switch, at least as far as I know, has not been announced yet. I gave up. I checked like every single day for like a month, and it never was announced, obviously, because they're still working on it. The whole shenanigans with the Wii U and everything. I want to play it on the, I held off. I was like, I'm going to play the game on a Nintendo console because it's rare, and that's why. That's the only reason, but at the same time, I feel like that's a good reason. A very, very good reason. So, as someone who still hasn't played Yooka-Laylee, I've seen many of the NPCs in the game, and a lot of them are fantastic. And I know in typical Kongversation fashion, they are discussed heavily in detail, and that's something that DKU, self-proclaimed DKU fans nerd out about all the time. But I'm going to throw a curveball and remind you of the greatest NPC that Rare has ever created. If anyone asks me, this is a reminder that no matter how many good NPCs are in upcoming Rare and Playtonic games, especially Playtonic considering the amazing work they did with all the new NPCs and everything, they will never top, drum roll please, they will never, figurative drum roll, they will never top the NPC B. Locker from Donkey Kong 64. Do you know why? Because he is literally the most, he is literally the most ridiculous, simplistic yet ridiculous idea for an NPC ever conceived of for a 3D platformer, not just possibly for a 3D platformer that was made by Rare, possibly any video game ever, because he is even more trope-defying than anything in Conquer. Literally, what he does is prevent you from entering the next level until you hand him. You don't even hand him the bananas, do you? I haven't played that game in forever. But he requires.
Oh, looks like Dean Dude hit the 3-minute mark, which, by the way, if you haven't ascertained, is how long the DK Vine Hotline lets you record a message before it cuts you off. I have a hunch this next call will rectify that, though. So why don't we just take that before we address his love of B-Locker.
I believe I was cut short there on my last call. This has a time limit. What is this? A training barrel? Oh, jeez. I'm sorry. On the subject of DK64. Anyways, to leave off where I was cut off, I'm sorry that I had to call in twice for this. I wanted to avoid that at all costs, but some traditions die hard. Anyways, B-Locker is the best because, or he is the funniest, most ridiculous, and possibly just the most as far as purposes go, there is nothing to hide with. It's literally a character designed to block you from getting to the next stage. He's literally just a plank of wood who does not really like his job that much, judging from his very cynical nature that he has. He's literally just a plank of wood as a counter with a number of bananas you need. And I can't go any further than that. I still just like, it's just like the most stupid yet genius thing it's the most brilliant satire, but at the same time, it's satire being done in an almost like weirdly out of place way. Anyways, I don't even know where I'm going with this, so I had more to say. I'm sure the conversation can pick up where I left off, or where I leave off with analyzing with character analysis. But man, I mean, like I said, even Conquer doesn't even have anything that straightforward in terms of making fun of a trope. I mean, seriously, you're just being a trope. He is literally a character that is a trope. Anyways, I don't want to run out of time again, so I'm out. Bean Dude out. Thank you for podcasting. I enjoy them very much.
Thank you for the calls, Dean Dude. Cameron, do you think this is the closest we're ever going to have to a character witness for B. Locker?
I think it very well might be. I don't usually see this fondness expressed for B. Locker, and it does, in hindsight, make me wonder if it was the best choice of avatar for our own David Lynch, because real sweet guy when you actually talk to him, but I think it kind of paints him on the form as this humorless, stern jerkwad, because everybody associates that with B. Locker.
And considering David was our moderator on the DK Vine forum for many years before we just graduated him to full staff, yeah, he didn't earn many friends with the B. Locker avatar. I agree with what you're saying, Dean. I think one of the fundamental appeals... Rare does several characters in different ways, but one of their go-tos, you don't see it often. You see it a little bit more in Yooka-Laylee, I think. It's a little bit more prevalent than it is in their past works or Rare's past works. But it's the complete piss-take shit character. And I would agree B. Locker is probably qualifies as one of those. Just he's a piece of wood that blocks your entrance into the world unless you can show him the bananas. And the other one that obviously comes to mind from modern day Rare is Captain Bones, who runs the alternate Twitter account Ask Captain Bones. And for the record, I don't think he's going to be a character in Sea of Thieves proper. I hope he is, but I hope they find room for the good Captain
Considering
Bones.
what's been happening to all the skeletons that game, maybe we should hope he's not.
I don't know. I think you can have a good Skelly here or there. I think it can be like the Kremlings in Donkey Kong, you know. Yeah, they're primarily the antagonist, but occasionally you'll run into an alt-right one. And I think Captain Bones could be that for the Skellies. But
so long as Captain Bones has a fight me option.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't even thinking Clubba.
Him.
I was thinking K. Lumsy or Crunch, you know. I think Clubba is still primarily an antagonist, but
sure,
no,
bad, but not strong loyalties.
Right, exactly. He's kind of like the Deathstroke of the DKU. He's, you know, usually an antagonist, but if the situation is right, or maybe it's what's the other one from Suicide Squad, the Will Smith one,
Deadshot.
Deadshot. I can't remember his name because I'm like it's not Deadpool because that's the X-Men. Deadshot. Kind of like him, where he'll fight on the side of the Angels, but not for any noble reasons. He's got a code of honor. Captain Bones it comes to mind because he's just a shit character. He's a pirate skeleton, and his name is Captain Bones, and that is literally it. And it's purposely just the laziest attempt, but it's designed that way. It's not just. They suck. If you understand the humor of Rare and Platonic, you will get where these characters are coming from.
I also think like the lack of appreciation I've seen for B. Locker is a testament to how much he succeeds as a character, because he is intended to be kind of an annoying jackass.
Yeah.
I mean, just to the point of having an animation where he blows a raspberry at you.
Yeah, and he seems to talk in that like New York Bronx affliction. You don't actually hear his voice, but just the way it's typed out, the abbreviations and whatnot. That's the way I always pictured him in my head. But I mean, it's in Yooka-Laylee. I think there's several examples of just I think pseudo shit, lazy characters. What immediately comes to mind are the slot machines in Capital Casino that talk to you, the slot bandits or whatever they are. They're just it just...
They're exactly what they need to be.
Yes, you get joy in the inarticulate character conceptions, and a little bit of it goes a long way. You know, if the game is full of it, then it starts to get a little weary, but because you need to have really strongly conceived characters to balance it out. But I think
it's like how you can have Gobi and like what's one of the lamer characters in Banjo-Kazooie? Leaky, I'll say.
You're really gonna upset the Leaky diehards out there now.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Leaky has his fans. I've seen Leaky fan art out there.
I think I was under the mistaken. I was under the brief mistaken impression his name was Mr. Bucket for some reason, and conflating it with probably like the shit name for the sort of battery powered board game thing.
Yeah,
and momentarily forgetting his name was Leaky and demolishing my argument. So apologies to Leaky's fans and creators.
I was probably the right age for Mr. Bucket when it was a thing, like when it came out, and even I had no interest in Mr. Bucket. That was never a Christmas list wish for me. It's literally just a bucket that shoots balls at you, and you've got it.
Gator Golf was where it was at.
Oh yeah. You know, thinking about it, Mr. Bucket was just a cat toy. Like, my cat would have loved that when she was still alive. But, yeah, no, thank you. As a kid amusement tool, yeah. Gator Golf, though, that brings to mind, wasn't there a game where you had to pull the teeth out of a crocodile? Crocodile, like Dentist or something?
Yeah, I think there was.
Yeah, a lot of crocodile games. There was also Crocodile Mile, which was a enhanced version of the slip and slide, where instead of just going down a yellow strip of plastic on your lawn that's wet, you are actually going through a crocodile's mouth. And granted, it's not that spectacular because the crocodile, I think, is just like it's just a printed image of a crocodile, and you just go through it. But it seems so much more impressive than just regular slip and slide. And wow, we're going off track here. Thank you for the call, Dean. And yes, here's to B Locker. One day he will get his due. He will reappear in a Donkey Kong game. Nintendo owns B Locker, and yet they do nothing with him, which I think is a disgrace, even more so than K. Rool. Not really, but it sounded good for your purposes.
Hi there, it's Ron Butler here. I had something I wanted to bring up, kind of got thinking about this after the Diddy Kong character spotlight. So, back when I was a kid, I was always kind of, I don't know, there were weird things with the patterns that would kind of get me thinking. And here's an example. So, you had Mario Land on the Game Boy, Mario Land 2, Mario Land 3 was Wario Land, so then Wario Land 2 came out. And then I was thinking, well, naturally, Wario Land 3 is going to be like Toad Land or Luigi Land or Peach Land or something. And I was disappointed when that turned out not to be the case. I mean, even though the later Wario Lands are good games, it's a silly kid thing. Anyway, I was wondering if, let's imagine that, it's 1997, Super Nintendo is the newest thing out. There is no N64, no PlayStation, no Atari Jaguar or whatever. And Donkey Kong Country 4 is announced, and the plot is Dixie Kong, or maybe Dixie and Diddy and Donkey and a bunch of Kongs, mysteriously disappeared, and Kiddy Kong has to go find them. Who would his sidekick be? Going off of that, you can see how this pattern would keep going, where you could keep having games forever with, one Kong teamed up with another, Kongs all the way down, as they say. What would be some interesting Kong pair-ups that you would like to see, that you think would be an interesting character dynamic? I don't know, I was thinking about this, maybe Chunky and Tiny might be an obvious one. It's like Chunky's the big one, but he's getting Tiny to do all the all this dangerous work because he's afraid, and Tanya doesn't care because she's an accountant. She's got money, so she can just pay the hospital bills if she gets hurt. I don't know. Anyway, let me know what you think. I'm curious to hear. Bye.
Well, thank you for the call again, Rob. Yeah, I like thought exercises like this, like alternate history. What would be the scenario here? Now, if there was a Donkey Kong Country 4 and Kitty was the star, which, again, I don't think would have ever happened. I don't think even in the vast multiverse there would be a universe where Kiddy Kong was the star of his own game. But even in the infinite possibilities, I don't think this would have ever really panned out.
Yeah, I think the issue with putting Kiddy in a starring role is I think his creation was partially motivated in, like, for the third game you wanted to kind of bookend the trilogy and pair Dixie up with Donkey Kong. You couldn't, because if you want to make a Dixie Kong solo game, Donkey Kong is immediately going to override that because he's the main character and his name is in the title, right. Top billing. Kitty, I think, was kind of a safe, like, who is in no way, shape, or form going to steal the spotlight away from Dixie Kong. And they went with a toddler, and I think that kind of, there's nowhere to go downward from there. I know I've seen it posed like from a few people, like bringing it full circle with pairing up Donkey Kong and Kiddy Kong, and from a character standpoint, I guess that makes sense. But when I think about actually playing that kind of game, I just think that would be a very, very slow game.
It would be, and you really couldn't have Donkey Kong be the sidekick in any scenario. So I agree. Kiddy Kong was designed to be kind of a dead end. Like, okay, this stops here. The sidekick will not proceed to be the protagonist in a year. This is over. This pattern is over. We have to give it to Dixie because she was such a successful character. But we're going to intentionally make Kiddy Kong a bit shit. Just to get this over with. DKC3 was not designed to make the sidekick that endearing. It was designed to give Dixie Kong her due.
I mean, that's implicit in the name being Double Trouble. Doesn't that kind of imply that Kiddy is the other trouble? He's a burden foisted upon Dixie by Funky, who really, really wanted him out of his boathouse.
Right. We discussed this a little bit, I believe, on the Spotlight
Bookshed.
Yeah, Nick and I discussed this on our Spotlight series for DKC3 last autumn. But yeah, I mean, I like Kiddy Kong, but let's be honest, Kiddy Kong was not designed to be the next Diddy or Dixie. I mean, if he caught on, great, but I don't think that was ever really the intention. But I also think Kiddy Kong maybe was designed to bring back elements of Donkey Kong Jr. that the Donkey Kong Country series kind of wiped away. It was designed to have a character with those attributes back in the franchise. And he never really caught on, of course, after the initial cycle of DKC3 and DKL3. But
which is a shame. I really wanted my Kiddy Kong branded footy pajamas.
I thought you were going to say Kiddy Kong math, which would have helped me when I realized in junior high I'm not good at math. All of a sudden, I just hit the brick wall. I don't know if I ever discussed this. It probably came up that I was put in the wrong math class in 6th grade. They mixed up my testing results, and I was put in the remedial math class for a few months. They realized their error, and then they put me in the advanced math class. But by that point, I had already missed the first several months of math. And so I was going in not knowing how to do a lot of this rudimentary, like, algebra. And I had an experience sort of like that myself. I didn't get put into remedial math, but I did well enough in, like, the standard math class that they started putting me up in these, like, higher level math courses, and I immediately tanked my grades because it was just, like, the Peter principle kind of thing where you're elevated until you reach a point where
you're above your station.
Right. My brain doesn't think mathematically. It thinks more, liberal arts. And so I can do math when you explain it to me, but when you try to push me forward after skipping over like the building blocks of math, because math just builds on itself, then yeah, I was completely lost for the rest of my academic career as far as math goes. So Kiddy Kong math would have helped me. But anyway, we're kind of ignoring Rob's general question here to just talk about Kiddy Kong and his merits or lack thereof. I don't think Kiddy Kong would have been paired with an existing Kong. If you're thinking like Cranky or, again, Donkey, I don't think that would have happened. I think based on the pattern, it would have to be a new Kong. But who would best suit Kiddy Kong as a partner? I really don't. That's hard because he's basically designed to be a sidekick, unless you were to age him slightly in a year. Maybe like another family member, like maybe his mom, Kiddy Kong's mom. That would be entertaining, I think.
I could see like Swanky doing it, but as like a Joe Bluth, George Michael situation where he's just a bad parental figure.
Like that episode in season 4 where Job tries to get people to believe George Michael's his boyfriend at the Gothic Asshole.
Yeah, why don't we see that in the game?
I just love this idea in the fandom now that Swanky Kong is Joe Bluth for the Kongs.
It's all because of that fan art Michael Peterson did several years back.
Yeah. Well, that and I could see Will Arnett voicing both Swanky Kong, but also honestly Donkey Kong himself. He just got the voice for it. Yeah, I would say it would have to be like moving from Kiddy Kong's babysitter to like a hovering mom or something, or maybe because I don't know, it's hard because he's still a dumb toddler, and you just don't get much really joy out of that being the protagonist. And considering it was the same team essentially who gave us Donkey Kong 64, yeah, it could have been a Donkey Kong 64 Kong, since it was all conceived in the same kind of brain trust. So maybe it would have been Tiny Kong or his brother Chunky Kong, although that would have been a very, again, slow game. But this reminds me, maybe not as like a protagonist, but something I remember thinking about like when I was younger and trying to think of if there was another Donkey Kong Country game and Kiddy kind of fell to the wayside, like what would he do? Like if he was allowed to grow up a little bit. And I was thinking like maybe he'd like not grow up and not really want to be into the whole adventuring thing, and maybe he'd sort of, I don't know, maybe his relationship with Chunky would mend when he was old enough to not try and chew on radial tires. And maybe they could have like a sort of mentor-mentee relationship or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as far as like the discussion of aging Kiddy Kong goes, the thing that always comes to my mind, and again, maybe mentioned for the third time here, maybe this was Michael Julius Peterson M-Dog idea, but I like the idea of him having a beanie with a propeller on it to give him the hovering capabilities of, eventually Diddy, but at the time Dixie, and make heavy characters somewhat more advantageous when through the air. So I like that idea of bringing Kiddy back, because if you bring Kiddy back, he's got to be aged, or else it won't make any sense in light of Tiny Kong hitting puberty. So
yeah, we'll pretend that makes sense.
What do you mean? That makes perfect sense. Tiny Kong hit puberty and she had a growth spurt, and she outgrew Dixie. I don't see why people have a hang up with that.
Because we also treat Diddy Kong Racing DS as a sequel, even though I doubt many people outside of this site do.
That's true. Okay, yeah, that's true, but it works as a sequel if you squint really hard.
Really hard. It will also help blur the DS textures a little bit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The less said about the touch controls, the better. maybe if you squint and you like clench really tight, that will be acceptable as far as the control scheme goes. At the very least, the Rare team who made that acknowledged that was a misstep. But
yeah, I think they sort of described it was sort of like their test case for figuring out the inner workings of the DS hardware to, prepare themselves for future titles, and that kind of didn't pan out in the long run, unfortunately.
No, but I'm a big fan of Tiny growing up, just because I find it hilarious that the Kongs do age, and I can't believe that happened under Nintendo. And that might have been Nintendo's call too, because it apparently wasn't Rare's call as we originally believed. So I just think it's funny that Wrinkly died and Tiny hit puberty, and I would be okay seeing more of this, especially for the Kongs that people don't really care about.
Yeah, I remember pre-release, I thought when we thought Rare was responsible for this change in Tiny Kong's design, I figured oh, this was because she's slotted into Banjo's place, and they'll have some excuse it's Taj or Wizpig's magic, like how I almost said Royston, Drumstick became a frog, and that'll be the rubbish explanation behind it, and no, that wasn't the case.
Although I think in Diddy Kong Racing DS, because Wizpig is playable, and Taj, you've got to have some allowances that they shrunk down with their magic.
Yeah, for all its faults, Diddy Kong Racing DS did have some really, really cool stuff in it.
Oh, absolutely. I will not slag off that game completely. It's the touch controls, but if you can get past that, it's a great game. And I love Diddy Kong Racing, and I loved having more of it. So, anyway, yeah, I'm just gonna say either Chunky Kong. I've reworked Chunky Kong because I think it would be too slow to have Chunky Kong as it existed in DK64 with Kiddy Kong, or I would have something ludicrous like Kiddy Kong's mom and just have her be well, I guess Wrinkly already had the whole jazzercise kind of I don't know, Leslie Sansone.
Could it be Wrinkly Kong's
Denise
ghost?
Austin. Well, Wrinkly Kong would have to die first. This is in a world that Donkey Kong 64 never happened. Or the N64 didn't come out yet, or something.
Donkey Kong Country 4 would have a very grim opening.
So, and I wouldn't partner any supporting Kong characters. I wouldn't pull a Tropical Freeze because I don't think that was going to be Rare's MO if there was a Donkey Kong Country 4. And granted, there was going to be a Donkey Kong Country 4 if the handheld team had their way. They pitched it to Nintendo, and Nintendo said no because at this point they were probably already making the first steps towards what would become Donkey Kong Country Returns with Retro. So it would have been interesting to see what Rare would have pulled off. And honestly, I would guess if they got the green light for it, they would have partnered up Kiddy with Donkey Kong because at that point it didn't matter. But if this was 1997, it would be a new sidekick character for sure. Okay, well that was a long discussion about hypotheticals and math. Everybody loves a good discussion about math. Thank you for the call again, Rob. All right, next call.
Hey guys, it's me, Banjo Bear, from the Banjo-Kazooie series made by Rareware, anyway, in 1998, well, technically I'm from Diddy Kong Racing. Anyways, I have a tip for you for E3 2017, the Microsoft press conference, and it's coming straight from you, from the source. That's right, Kazooie, no bar holds, no bear holds, or no holds bears. Nope. Alright guys, no holds bears. Straight from the source. I'm gonna have a new game of my own. You can either play this in the E3. Hype! Podcast? Sorry, I'm not familiar with new technology. Or you can play it in the E3 Microsoft press conference reaction podcast, because this is what's gonna show up. Anyways, it's gonna be about my misadventures after Nuts and Bolts. Now, you won't believe this, but there's actually a game coming out by Rareware, as I told you already. Kazooie, take it away. Whoa! Holy shit! What? Whoa! Kazooie, that's amazing. Anyways, I gotta go. Actually, I got a tip straight from Retro Studios, my friends over in Texas, Dallas. And I gotta tell you, it's one heck of a tip. You know what, guys? I kinda regret this call. I'm sorry, listeners. You know what? I don't have a game coming out. And I know I'm the first to admit this, but you should play Sea of Thieves. It's a pretty good game. I mean, I've played it, obviously. I work at Railware, but, you know what? You should stop the call here. I'm not going to say anything else worthwhile. I stopped saying anything worthwhile, 2 minutes ago, but I'm sorry, guys. Well, okay, I've never said anything worthwhile, but yay. Take it away, Kazooie.
Oh, the magic of call sack episodes. Thank you for the call, Banjo.
I wish he'd kind of committed to that the whole way through, because about halfway through that call, I was wondering, like, did we miss Banjo? Was it like buried within Super Lucky's tail, and because you were so eager to rip on it, we just never noticed it?
I didn't rip on Super Lucky's tail. I said it's a solid game that felt like a rental title back in the late 90s. I
just meant rip on it for the similarity in the main character to Conquer. No statement on the quality of the game.
I was gently chiding it. It was just good-natured joshing. What I liked about this Banjo call, though, was that about halfway through, it sounded less like Banjo and more like a guy with a severe head cold. So
maybe Banjo had a severe head cold.
Maybe Banjo was at E3. No,
he got all of us sick. That's it.
Yeah,
Patient Zero looking at you, Banjo.
I did appreciate the twist, though, where he just flat out gives up on the notion that there's going to be a Banjo game at E3, which for some reason is a persistent rumor that keeps cropping up each E3 that never pans out. And I like that he was okay with it because Sea of Thieves is so awesome.
Yeah,
Banjo
I know, would feel that way.
Yeah, although he kept calling it Rareware, which I have to point out was never actually the company's name. It was always Rare Limited. They branded themselves as Rareware in the 90s, but
it's actually interesting. Like this came up circulating on Twitter this week. An interview, I think, with the Stampers in Nintendo Power pre Donkey Kong Country with the old serif font Rare Limited logo. Yeah.
It is amusing to me that people are like very hung up on the Rareware name, but nonetheless,
it was branding. That's all it was,
and it was very effective branding. But anyway, it honestly makes me wonder: should Rare just should they have just brought it back in 2015? Like, I don't know. Like, so many people seem to have this affection for it, and I mean, I have affection for it. I'm not gonna lie. I just also know they're just Rare Limited, and I've always just been Rare Limited. Officially,
I think the only downside is that it makes it very difficult to say the word rare in casual conversation without it sounding like you're making a pun. Beyond that, I like it's a simple name.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's funny. So many people, including in the DK Vine community, thought there was going to be a Banjo game, that Greg Mails was working on it because of his tweets about the rhymes. And of course, the rhymes were for Sea of Thieves, which I knew going into it.
Like, come on, you're not going to pry Greg Mails off a pirate game.
Exactly. I mean, this is his childhood dream come true. Come on. No, thank you for the call, Banjo and Kazooie. You know, we were talking, we've been talking, Cameron, that we don't really know what Kazooie's voice would sound like. And apparently...
I think we still don't. It sounds like she was choking on a tennis ball the whole time.
Yeah, which... obviously, it wasn't the real Banjo and Kazooie, so it makes me worried how he was simulating that bird voice.
It was one of Banjo's helpers, though, right?
Exactly. One of the many inbred rednecks who appear at shopping malls and get little kids to sit on their lap. I think they're related to Banjo. I hope so. Anyway, next call.
Super Lucky's Tale's all right. Good game.
Good rental title for 1999. It's not a bad thing, all right?
Can you hear me now, Hyle? Can you hear me now? Last week, you wanted some calls about E3, so I asked you, were there any third-party publishers more suited for owning Rare than Microsoft? You know what? Fuck Phil Spencer. Why can't Rare work for Andrew House and not Iwata? I want both Sea of Thieves and Donkey Kong Racing. Fake paid actor.
ILDC again.
Was he about to collapse from exhaustion in the last few seconds of that call? I'm very worried about a lot of our listeners.
I think it was less exhaustion and more rage. Okay, so the last episode, ILDC called in, and I think we misinterpreted his call, or we just didn't answer the question, and people in the DK Vine forum backed me up because they didn't understand what he was asking, and he rage called in at like 1:40 in the morning, and that's what this was. So. Deep breaths, ILDC. I hear you loud and clear. You were asking if there's anybody better suited to own Rare. You want both Sea of Thieves and Donkey Kong Racing. So
I'm not sure there's any scenario where you would get that.
Yeah, okay. So I think part of the problem, too, is that it's not 1998 anymore, 1997, if we're actually going back 20 years cleanly. Rare, to keep up with modern times, they can't have like 4 or 5 games in the pipeline anymore. So I still think it would be an either-or situation. You're not going to have different games being worked on in each barn anymore. So I still think it would be kind of... this is the game Rare's working on. And
I mean, if the core question is there anyone Rare would be better off with at this point? No.
Yeah.
I think the answer is a solid no.
I understand there's still a lot of stigma about Microsoft from hardcore gamers, but specifically gamers who had been around for the first generation of Xbox into the 360 years, and some of the decisions Microsoft made, not a blanket statement towards like everybody part of Microsoft Studios, but from the top, there were statements and decisions, and even the rollout of the Xbox One. Go back and listen to season 1 of the Kongversation.
If you had asked this question several years back, my answer might have been different. I'll say that. Yeah,
exactly.
But I'm pretty content and optimistic with the current direction of the company.
We can take the piss out of things like the Scorpio reveal and the ludicrous nature of the Xbox One X name, or the T-shirts, I witnessed the most powerful console ever. But it's good natured taking the piss. It's not like we're creeping into their bedrooms at night and getting them to pee in a cup against their will and using that piss for nefarious reasons, which has happened to me in the past, Cameron, and I don't really want to get into it. But that's another conversation for another day. But I mean, you said fuck Phil Spencer. I don't know where that hostility is coming from. He's Saint Phil, and I think all of the decisions he's made have gone a long way towards making me a fan of Microsoft Studios and the Xbox. For the first time in my life, I've had an Xbox since the original Xbox. I've been through every generation of Xbox, but I bought an Xbox for Rare. It was Phil Spencer who made me an Xbox fan. And I think since he took over relatively recently, still, it's only been a few years, you have seen a shift in the company ethos and mission statement, and it's been a lot more warm and welcoming, and everything that they're striving to do, whether they can do it or not, it remains to be seen. But this whole nobody gets left behind mantra and crossplay, and wanting eventually, if Sony and Nintendo allowed it, allowing you to play cross-platform. We're seeing that a little bit with Minecraft right now, but that's, is it Mojang? Is that how you pronounce it?
This was a thing that happened with Chad at E3. He pronounced it, I believe, Mojang, or I'm going to do him a disservice not actually getting it right, but I thought it was Mohang for the longest time, and yeah, that threw me for a loop. I am still uncertain.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing I don't really play Minecraft then. So it never really has to come up.
Well, if it's one of the console versions, we can just say 4J and move on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we're seeing that a little bit, and granted, that's Minecraft, so more people are willing to play ball than they are with just the parent corporation.
Well,
but
play pixelated cube.
Oh, fair enough. But yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of what Phil Spencer is. We didn't give him the label Saint Phil Spencer out of any misplaced loyalty to Rare. It was, whoa, this guy is actually making decisions and making statements that we've been wanting to hear for years now. And so far, I mean, a lot of that's panned out. And he's letting one of his mantras was "Let Rare be Rare," and that's exactly what they're doing with Sea of Thieves. So I wouldn't trade the security and the support they have from a studio or a company with deep pockets like Rare for really anything in the world right now. I think they have a safe home that supports them, and that's all important. I mean, Sea of Thieves is getting so much backup from Microsoft, and they're doing what it takes to ensure it's going to be a success. And that's really all we could have asked for from Microsoft this entire time, really. I mean, so yeah. No, I hope this is answering the question you want, but I really can't fathom anybody else who would be better at owning Rare right now than Microsoft. Was that good, Cameron? I don't want another angry 1:40 a.m. call from ILTC.
I certainly hope so.
I mean, if he wants me to engage in hypotheticals, I really can't do that. I mean, that's my answer. I don't see any other possibility.
Yeah, I'm comfortable enough in this reality not to seek out an alternate one.
They could be completely independent, like Platonic, and just partner with somebody like Team 17, but then they wouldn't have necessarily the capital to do what they're doing now, like having a technical alpha that lets players in every few weeks for several hours, And
you wouldn't have stuff like them getting in on the ground floor of Mixer and stuff like that. Initiatives that are related to the consoles themselves.
Exactly. So I think it's great that we also have Playtonic, a team of former Rare employees who are independent and get to kind of chart their own destiny a bit. It's a nice balance. It's a nice mixture. And then you've got former Rare composers doing work for Ubisoft, Grant Kirkhope and David Wise doing things like Snake Pass and, according to our sources, even Nintendo. So,
ideal world, I still would like to see Playtonic get tapped for a future Donkey Kong game. I hope that...
Absolutely. Let them do their own thing, but
absolutely.
At some point,
as we always say with retro, let them make the game they want to make.
Right. We still don't know who's making Metroid Prime 4, though. We know it's not retro, but that still hasn't come to light, has it?
As far as I know, all that it's been described is it's a new team led by Tanabe.
Interesting. Well, I hope there is a grabbing vegetables mechanic in the game, or else I'm going to be very let down by Tanabe. All right. Let's take another call.
Hey guys, my name's Ethan, otherwise known as Dan the Bear on Twitter, DK Vine. I'm relatively new, and this is my third time trying to call in because it keeps cutting me out. So, okay, I'm just going to keep this brief. Okay, if there's one thing I don't like when games do, it's when they take an established location and then they just reboot it, kind of, in the sequel. One game where I really didn't appreciate it was Donkey Kong 64. I mostly have it fresh on the mind because I was listening to the Spotlight episode you guys did a while back on it. So, anyway, because the one thing I just don't think it fits in because of all the levels they introduced, like Fungi Force and Angry Aztec, like those two levels alone just do not feel like they belong on the island at all. So, I kind of want to ask what your thoughts on this were, because basically I feel like there could have been two options to help this. Either A, they look back at the original Donkey Kong Island in DKC1 and then make the levels based off the environments introduced there, maybe throw in a new one because, the entire island was explored by one set fit for sure. Or what they could have done, and what I really think should have been done, they just set it on a whole new island or continent of the Rare Archipelago because I feel like that could have helped out a lot. So instead of wondering why the heck all these locations and people are now randomly at Donkey Kong's Island, I can think, oh hey, this is a really cool part of the Donkey Kong universe. Like seriously, just change the story that Donkey Kong and his friends are vacationing there, and then they figure out that K. Rool's trying to blast Donkey Kong Island from there. So, yeah. Thankfully I got all my thoughts out this time, so thank you, have a good day, and again, hopefully this is the one, the call you use. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the call, Ethan, band bearer. And yeah, the 3-minute time limit trips up many the first-time call, not even first-time callers who've been calling in for years now. It does trip you up, and I know I'm long-winded naturally, so just check the length of any Kongversation podcast or any of my Facebook posts. But I couldn't handle the 3-minute time limit, so more power to all of our callers who can. And thank you for calling in. And this is a good topic, good first time topic here to call in with. My understanding, Cameron, of the Donkey Kong 64, we'll call it a map, overworld, whatever, is that, and I realize this is controversial, but it's the only way I can rationalize Angry Aztec existing on Donkey Kong Island. These worlds don't actually exist on Donkey Kong Island. I see them as realms you teleport to, similar to Banjo-Kazooie, the first Banjo-Kazooie. I don't see these places as actually existing within Donkey Kong Island themselves. Obviously, they're influenced by Donkey Kong Island. You got characters crossing into them, but it just doesn't work right. It doesn't sit well with me. You can't have Angry Aztec in the same spot that Vine Valley sits.
The weird thing for me is I think about DK64's world placement, and I think the only world in that entire game that I have this problem. Well, okay, two worlds in which I kind of have this problem, where I couldn't like squint and pretend that they do take place approximately in relation to their position on the island. Is Angry Aztec and to some extent Gloomy Galleon.
What's wrong with Gloomy Galleon? Just the fact that you go into the mechanical crocodile aisle.
I think it's just the literal entrance. I think I could extrapolate that, like, maybe there's because Crocodile Aisle 2.0 or Mecha Crocodile Aisle or whatever you want to call it suffers the same thing Donkey Kong Island does, where it's sort of like a three-dimensional map screen rather than a literal world map. You kind of have to massage it a little bit.
Yeah.
But Angry Aztec, I don't know, I'm kind of in between on that. Like, I could see it maybe being on Donkey Kong Island, but, like, if you imagine Donkey Kong Island to be this overwhelmingly massive island, which I guess it would have to be to accommodate all the varying climates we see in it to begin with. But yeah, I would have to imagine you would have to scale up Donkey Kong Island quite a bit for me to slot that in anywhere as sort of like a lost city kind of thing.
Yeah, it doesn't really work. And the weird thing about Donkey Kong 64's world placement is you've got worlds that absolutely work, like Jungle Japes and Frantic Factory. Like, okay, yeah, this
Crystal
is
Caves as well, yeah.
Crystal Caves, yeah. But then you've got just they didn't give a shit. Oh, we've got this idea for a world. Where are we going to stick it? This is good enough. And Creepy Castle, I think, is one of the weirdest ones, really.
Weirdly, Fungi Forest is one I'm okay with because they stuck it on its own floating island, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, sure. Floating island forest.
I'm fine with it as well, yeah. And of course, as far as the size issues go, the overworld of Donkey Kong 64, you have to just make allowances that it's exaggerated. It's smaller than it appears smaller than it actually is. It's actually you're going around the entire span of Donkey Kong Island, which is massive.
It's like a 3D version of the world map screen in Donkey Kong Country, really, where like Monkey Mines is represented by like one cave.
Yeah. So that's my take, at least, that it's a Banjo-Kazooie world scenario, and it might even be going to the same like pocket universe that those worlds take place in. But I also think it's the easiest explanation, because moving forward, especially in Retro's games, people give Retro shit for changing the design of Donkey Kong Island. It is still laid out the same, though, and you've still got the same environments in the exact same spots. So you've got the jungle where the Congo jungle is, you've got Monkey Mines where Monkey Mines is, you've got the forest where Vine Valley is.
You can squint and make it work.
The only thing they really changed was there's now a volcano on the top of the island instead of Gorilla Glacier, and that's established because the volcano erupts at the beginning of the game. So, they never
weirdly kind of have that like unintentionally foreshadowed in Donkey Kong Country GBA, where Chimp Caverns has this like constant like radiating red glow, sort of like implying there's some sort of volcanic activity.
Not just that, in Donkey Kong 64, when you go into the side of the island, the lobby for Crystal Caves, there is lava flow, which rumor has it that was where the ice key was going to come into play when you brought that from Banjo-Kazooie. So I don't know if that's true or not, but it's one of those fan things that's kind of just soft fact at this point. but it might just be because of hearsay.
That's a question I never really thought about. Is the ice key like literally ice? Would it melt if you had it in your pocket in a particularly hot location?
Yeah, I think it's a magical ice key, so I don't really know, but the ice key is always associated with lava because of the fucking lava world quip by Gobi, and of course the weird lava room in Grunny's lair that was probably going to be the entrance to Mount Fire Eyes when that was a thing, when that was at least on the drawing board. Although that might just be another hearsay thing.
I want that to be a thing in a 3D platformer. Give the player this very important, one-of-a-kind item, and then immediately send them into a desert or lava world where it just melts into a puddle.
That would be obnoxious, Cameron, especially because the ice key in Banjo-Kazooie, the way it's coded, once you get it, it's gone on all save files. So that would be the nightmare scenario. Okay, you've got the ice key. Now you have 2 minutes. Go.
I do apologize for my coughing throughout this episode, by the way.
Banjo got you sick at E3. We all know. We all saw you making out with him behind the curtain. It's fine.
Yeah, very, very hard to get near those lips. His nose is... It doesn't hit you how weird it is until you see it in 3 dimensions, like up close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. By the way, I on record, there is a picture of me and Chad giving a very sweaty embrace to the Conker statue. A picture that Rare has used on their website.
To which I believe Conker himself replied on Twitter, "Yuck."
Anyway, thank you for the call, Ethan. And please don't be afraid to call in again, even though your ice key will melt if you don't hit the mark under 3 minutes.
Hey, DK Vine, this is Evan Lynn from the Yooka-Laylee Wiki. It's a little ironic that I haven't caught into a single Yooka-Laylee episode, which is weird, but I finally came up with something to talk about. It has to do with the Toy Box secret from Galleon Galaxy and the new Spin and Polish update that just came in. So, if anybody's listening but doesn't want to talk about the Toy Box secret spoiler, I'd say just mute the video and live stream for a little bit. Anyway, so, in Galleon Galaxy, once the player finds a net, and that states, "This is still loading exposition, 50.1%, demonstrate patience user." However, after the patch, the number actually has gone up, so now, instead of 50.1%, and that states, "Still loading exposition, 75% complete, demonstrates patience user." So we kind of all expected that it would go up, but I did a little math here, so the first number is 50.1%, and the number has now gone up to 75%. The first time around, I don't think the extra 0.1% and the 50.1% was a mistake or a joke. So, okay, let's take the difference between 75% and 50.1%. If you subtract the numbers, you should get about 24.9%. So now, let's assume that in every update, Playtonic Games increases the number of in-app dialogue by 24.9%. Again, that's the difference of 75% and 50.1%. So that means if we start at 50.1%, add 24.9 to it, you get the 75%, which is what we have right now in this current patch. And then guess what? In the next update, if you add 24.9%, you get 99.9%. Again, that's 24.9% plus 75%. So now you get 99.9%. So this is just a theory, but I actually believe that Playtonic is hinting something big, whether it's DLC, an update, or potentially new game and 2 more updates. The next update, in-app, will likely say 99.9%, and then the update after will get some kind of new content or reveal, because in-app will then finally load at 100% in 2 more updates. So I don't know what Playtonic Games is planning, DLC, a new update, a new game, or something has to do with the Pirate Treasure. I have no clue. But I do believe this is a hint to something big is coming. So if this theory is correct, then that means we'll get something huge in 2 updates. So what do you guys think of this? Anyways, let me know. See you guys later. Bye.
Oh, man.
Somebody clearly did not need Kiddy Kong math.
You stole my joke, Cameron. You stole it. Yeah, I did not know this because I have not been playing Yooka-Laylee on the PC, so this was news to me about the Spit and Polish Inept update. Thanks for the info.
I guess I guess maybe we shouldn't have given that assurance there would be no Yooka-Laylee spoilers in the beginning of this episode.
I mean, through World 5 at least.
Oh, sure.
But, yeah. Well, I don't know. I think there might be DLC. I think we might get maybe another world. Honestly, I could see that being the case. And I think it would be maybe rolled out with the Switch release.
I certainly think this is implying some form of content they've got planned long term. Otherwise, this is just a really odd joke to do.
No, I definitely think it's going to be related to Yooka-Laylee, and I think it's going to be extra content. If this was like a Batman Arkham game, then it would be a challenge map, a new challenge map. Ooh, play as Trouser on our new challenge map. But I think it's going to be a little bit more substantial than that. So
I can't wait for the snowplow challenge map.
Fuck. Yeah. I don't know. This is fascinating, and this kind of has caught me off guard. So I don't know. I don't have any quippy responses to give, nor do I have any really particular insights to share. I'll have to think about this, but I've had a feeling that DLC is coming, a substantial DLC, and
we still know that the 64-bit mode is coming at some point.
Mm-hmm. And I would wager that when it does, we're also going to get the Yooka-Laylee rap inside the actual game itself, which is a sticking point for me because I want that to be a part of the actual game, and it turns out it's not. But I don't see why they wouldn't put it in the game in an update. Yeah, thank you for the call, Evan. Main proprietor of the Yooka-Laylee wiki. Check it out. It's not like the Super Mario wiki. There's no bear scenarios that I've seen yet. All right. One more call, and then we can call it an episode. Are you ready for this call?
I don't know if you'd really call this an episode.
I mean, it is a numbered sequential installment of the conversation. I mean, what else would you call it?
I don't know, just kind of a cacophony.
Yeah, but to be fair, that's most conversations. We have to do
concophony or crocodile cacophony. I'm just padding the runtime at this point. I apologize, folks.
This is the conversation. We don't need to pad the runtime.
I'm padding it by heckling our own show.
Yeah, all right.
Why am I doing this, Hyle? Make me stop.
One more call. This does feel like a 9-day bicycle trek across the UK. We should be doing this for charity, honestly. All right. Last one. We can do it. Finish line is in sight.
Hi, this is Cody, a.k.a. the Captain Cheesebag. I don't know if it's too late to hit the callback episode, but just thought I'd try. I wanted to say that I love your content and everything you do, and I sort of just wanted to share my story about my relationship with DK Vine. I guess you could say I've been following DK Vine since around 2003-ish. I was in middle school at the time, and I found the website through, I don't know if you remember this or not, Mayamuki Roketo Dan, which was the site's version of what was then called an animutation, a sort of relic of a bygone era in which the internet worked in very different ways. It was a meme I liked a lot, and you could find memes or whatever through literally searching for them on like Google or whatever, instead of creating a dashboard on social media or searching hashtags. Anyway, I kept going back to the site because of the humor and because I didn't quite understand why the rest of the world didn't view Rare as the best content creators around, and sort of ubiquitously, unanimously. But, you know, eventually life kind of changed, and then kind of strayed away from keeping up with DK Vine until like 2 years ago. A friend of mine who also used to be a fan told me that DK Vine still existed, and I well, no offense, but I was a little surprised. It's one of those things where you find a niche community that makes a lot of sense to you, almost in so perfect a way that you think it can only be temporary, you know? So to find out it was still around, it was great. So I started following on Facebook, but only sort of casually. But then when Yooka-Laylee got me really excited to get back into the whole world of the DKU, I started listening to the live conversations and the Patreon subscribing and everything, and I have to say you hooked me, and I really want to get involved with the community now. I've been replaying the Country and Land series while going back and listening to archived conversations, and I'm really loving it, except in the Country one Spotlight, where you trash Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, which is one of my favorite shows, and I'll defend it to the death, but we'll move past that. Anyway, all this is to say, I just want to thank you for hosting such a great community and source of entertainment. So to wrap up, I just have a question for you. There's a game called Space Station Silicon Valley for the Nintendo 64 that I loved as a kid. It featured animal characters with googly eyes and was severely British, so I actually, as an ignorant child, assumed it was also a Rare game. And I was so disappointed when I found out that it wasn't, that I sort of jumped through a million hoops in my head to somehow make it work, that it was in the same universe, even though I knew deep down it isn't, except in my heart, because it's a great game. But anyway, my question is there any game or franchise that is your dark secret like that you totally know isn't DKU, but basically think of as DKU? Again, thanks, guys.
Thank you for the call, Captain Cheesebag. Captain Cheesebag, by the way, his name's Cody, but I prefer Captain Cheesebag, is also an active participant in our live stream chat for whenever we do these conversations live for the patrons. So, yeah, it's been great to see you around these last few episodes, last month or two. And
he unfortunately, it looks like he had to bail out just a little bit before we got to his call. I hope he'll listen to the archive.
Maybe he would have stuck around had you not added so much padding, Cameron. You're just padding with silence. Anyway, yeah, DK Vine shockingly still exists.
I tend to forget my depressed facial expressions don't come through on an audio show.
Yeah, you're going to have to find a way to physically exert noise when you do that. I looked up Space Station Silicon Valley just now, and I vaguely recall this. It came out October 1998, so it would have been wedged between Banjo-Kazooie and Ocarina of Time, and also the U.S. release of Pokemon Red and Blue. So I never played this. This is kind of completely... I vaguely think I saw this in Nintendo Power, but did I even still subscribe to Nintendo Power in late 1998?
This is one of those games I constantly hear people talk about, with really, really fond memories, and it's just a pop culture dead zone to me. But yeah. I've heard nothing but really pleasant anecdotes about this game.
Yeah, interesting. Well, it's one of those that, I would check out if, procuring N64 titles was easier to check out, if it was just as simple as, getting them on the virtual console or whatnot.
Or if I'm sure the eventual N64 Mini will only have one produced.
Right. It is an interesting topic. What will the N64 Classic have when it can't have any Rare games but Donkey Kong 64?
I wonder in the hypothetical if in some possible reality Diddy Kong Racing could end up on it. I think you might be able to get Microsoft and Nintendo to come together on it, because it would be on a product that's not competing with either of their consoles, and it's not a game that's on Rare Replay, so it wouldn't be taking away from sales of that.
I think that would be the shocking inclusion, as shocking as it is, not as shocking as Star Fox 2 because it's been available, but I think that could be the go-to N64 version of that, or even getting the original Yoshi's Island on the because that's another big thing the SNES Classic offers, is getting the actual Yoshi's Island.
It's the first time in a while we've seen like any games that use the Super FX chip.
Yeah, exactly. But to answer your question, Captain, any games that I intellectually recognize aren't DKU, but I secretly think of as DKU? Not really, because I'm kind of the guardian of the DKU as a concept, so it's hard for me to make that leap. I mean, if I believe something is DKU, it has to have the facts to back it up, and I realize there's controversial edge cases like Goldilocks and Little Bear put out by Nosy Crow, Ed Bryan's storybook company, and he put Royston in the game, and legally dubious, just like it is in Yooka-Laylee, but we accept it as Royston, and we accept that as part of the Donkey Kong universe. So I realize that would be kind of a case if I wasn't the one kind of shepherding this as a concept, but because I am, I fully commit to it, so I can't really say, Cameron, what about you though?
I'm thinking I may have like 3 examples of this that come to mind, but in different ways. The first one I think is Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, which I brought up earlier, because this was actually a discussion I believe I had with Jeff recently, which is I have to remind myself that game is not DKU, because right. One, it's the sequel to a game that is DKU, Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing with Banjo-Kazooie. I definitely got that title right. And in addition to that, it expanded on the first game by sort of taking inspiration, like very explicitly they admit this in interviews, from Diddy Kong Racing, with this system where you swap between land, air, and sea vehicles mid-race, or do the entire track as one vehicle, I believe in some cases, or just 2. But anyway, I think of it as sort of the closest thing to a Diddy Kong Racing spiritual successor that we have gotten since that game came out. And it aligns with a lot of like my sensibilities in terms of attention to detail and things to look for. And like I regret, I was a little bit disappointed when Banjo didn't come back for it. It was kind of made up for in some of the Sega nods I appreciated, like the car from the Hornet from Daytona USA. But just, and again, ties to Joe Neat, currently at Rare. And but yeah, I just see that game as aligning so much with what I like about the games most of the games that have ended up on our DKU list, that I still consider it in that family, even if it's not explicitly recognized. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's like those edge case games like Saberwolf for the GBA that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, that one too. I mean, that's sort of, it falls under our honorable mentions. It's represented on my map of the Rare Archipelago, which is usually strictly DKU titles, but it's on there somewhere. Look for it.
Yeah, I think like most Rare games would fall into that category for me, where I can like accept them as maybe taking place in the same universe. Obviously, Saberwolf does, but by our own rules, it cannot be an official part of the DKU. But, the events probably happened.
Killer Instinct is still an edge case, unfortunately, but that's one I really do see want to come in at some point.
Yeah. Well, at the very least, it would be the modern Killer Instinct. We couldn't retroactively get the first 2 Killer Instinct games.
I forgot that wasn't implicit, because Killer Instinct 2013 is one of those games that has the same title the first release used.
Right, so it's like a Star Trek 2009 type scenario.
Or a Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 scenario, but, well, no, that would not say good things about Killer Instinct 2013, which is a very good game.
I know that reference at least. I know the reputation that game has at the very least. I get that.
I feel like the reputation it has is exaggerated, but it's not something I would rally the troops to defend either.
Right.
I did mention there were 3 cases where I sort of considered this. The third one is Perfect Dark, and I actually don't say I consider this game DKU, but it's one that I would like the inner anarchist wants me to see somehow become DKU, because it's a game that it's a hard sci-fi game explicitly set in a specific time frame with Perfect Dark is set in 2023. Perfect Dark Zero is set in 2020. We're rapidly approaching that, and I would love the gymnastics DK Vine would have to do if, say, a Donkey Kong Country game came out in 2020, and we had to rationalize the, say, or 2023, and say have to rationalize the floating taxis in Chicago and first contact with gray aliens happening while Donkey Kong is off just doing another island hopping adventure.
For me, that is kind of the equivalent, again, bringing up Star Trek, to the eugenics wars in Star Trek. It's a concept. When they introduced the character of Khan in the original series, they said he was a genetically engineered super soldier from World War III, or the eugenics wars of the 1990s. So obviously Star Trek is still a thing that exists, and, you know, the Next Generation and then Deep Space Nine and Voyager are all, you know, were in the 1990s. So I know a lot of fans and expanded universe creators recontextualized and rationalized this war as this shadow war that was happening behind the scenes of the actual 90s governments of the world. And so it was never actually open public hostilities, but they were happening covertly. So that's kind of like the mental gymnastics you would have to make to slot Perfect Dark in with the world as we know it.
This is an implicit dare to Rare. Rip DK Vine asunder. Do this.
I feel like we dare them to do that all the time. Or at least our fans do when they try to get things like Shovel Knight. They try to get Drumstick retroactively put into Shovel Knight and weird shit like that. Anyway, yeah, thank you for the call, Captain Cheesebag, and it's nice to have you around. It's always nice to have, well, I guess in this case it's old blood, but again, like the eugenics wars of the 90s, you were around in the shadows. And now you've come out of your cryogenic freeze, and inevitably it's going to lead to Leonard Nimoy's death.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.
Well, that is until, you know, we get to the alternate universe and you become Benedict Cumberbatch, which, to be fair, is, I think, everybody's eventual fate. That's the show. Bye!